Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary, and today we're going to talk about A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L Armentrout. This is book 2 in the Blood and Ash series. If you haven't seen my review for From Blood and Ash, book 1, I'll link that below. Go check that out first and then come back here. So for book 2, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, I rated this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Let's talk about the good stuff first. What I liked in this book is the characters. I love these characters so much and I just want more of them. There's lots of character building in this book. I feel like maybe even too much. But there's a lot of character building and it feels like it's kind of bridging to what's going to happen in book 3. I loved learning the history of all the different kingdoms and Arcadia and what, quote, according to Cass, really happened. But again, maybe too much. It felt like there were times when we were hearing the same thing from a different character that we had already learned earlier in the book. And so that's not cool. That's something that should be taken out. I mean, we already know this, so why are we learning it again? It feels like almost like Jennifer L Armentrout is like unintentionally talking down to her readers at that point. Like, we get it. We get the history. We don't need it repeated 5 times. Kieran, by far, is my favorite character, and for me at least, the best part of this book. He holds this book together. I love his character so much. He's a great balance between seriousness and comedy, and he's just fantastic. So what didn't work for me? A lot, honestly, sadly. And this is where I'm going to be talking about spoilers, because I can't talk about some stuff without talking spoilers. And I should have said this at the start, but this is obviously spoilers for book 1. If you haven't read book 1 yet, you're going to be spoiled for book 1 because you can't talk about books and series without spoiling what happens before that. So what didn't work for me. Poppy, our main character, she just annoyed me so much. Like, I get you're mad at the situation. You're mad because Cass/Hawk lied to you and you didn't know he was the Dark Prince before. You thought he was just Hawk and you were in love and you're willing to give up everything for him. But there's nothing you can do about it at this point. He's got all of his woven and all of his men around you. You've now agreed to marry him to help find your brother, but now you're in love with him and you don't want to admit it because you're mad at the situation. And there's just too much of this brooding from Poppy and this, oh, but I love him, but I don't. I can't love him, and I love him, but I can't. Just embrace it. Girl, you're in the situation. You agreed to marry him. You loved him when he was Hawk. He's still the same person, just goes by a different name. So just embrace it. Get it over with. It'll make your life a lot easier if you just embrace it. And stop trying to freaking run away. You got woven there. They're going to catch you. They're going to track you down. And you're not prepared to live in the woods. So just stop already. That scene, well, I guess there were a couple of them. But when like Poppy runs away and into the woods with like just like a butter knife basically, all I could imagine was Belle running from the castle and the beasts in the woods and getting attacked by wolves. Or not attacked, but almost attacked. So that whole, I just don't do it anymore, Poppy, please. Also, what didn't work for me, it didn't really have a strong plot line in this book. They stayed mostly in the same areas, even though they were supposed to be journeying to Atlantia. It felt like what actually did happen, the rare actions that actually happened outside of just talking, was in a lot of the same spaces. And There wasn't a lot that actually happened. And so all of this that I've mentioned between the characters and the plot line and everything, the history, I feel like normally would be setting up for the next book. But from what I hear about book 3, it has similar issues in book 3. So that makes me really nervous to go on to A Crown of Gilded Bones. And I may even push it back on my TBR to a later month. Right now I have it slated in June, but it might get pushed back even farther. But with all of this, there were some quotes that I really loved and I pulled out. So I'm going to share those with you and then we'll wrap this up. I will find you a diamond so big it will enter the room before you do. And that made me laugh. That is Cass talking to Poppy, obviously. And you know Cass will find that diamond for her because Cass truly loves her, I believe, and not just using her. Like he said, he could have just used her for ransom like his original plan was to get his brother back, but then he fell in love with her and now he's not going to do that. He's just going to marry her despite what his parents will say. Another Cass quote, you can't spell dysfunctional without fun. And first of all, that's technically true. Second of all, that's so messed up like Poppy says. But that's why we love Cass, because he's funny and he's messed up. Kieran quote, when it comes to bacon, the answer is always yes. And I love bacon just like Kieran does, so I totally agree. And our last quote is actually from, I believe it was Kieran's father who we met in this book. And the quote says, the sky brings back old memories. And just this quote on its own is so poetic and so beautiful. But what it is signifying, what it references is the past when the sky lit up on fire. And that meant that entire kingdoms were on fire and all those people were dying. And so the people in Cass's kingdom, all the people that we meet along the way, have remembered this event from history. And some of them might have even known people that were a part of it. And so seeing the sky on fire again reminds them of that time, and it frightens them to death. And so that quote was just so poignant and beautiful because of what it represented mostly. So that's my review for A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I did enjoy it, just not as much as the first book. I gave it, like I said, 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I will be continuing on to see what happens in book 3, but it might get pushed back to a later date. So we'll see how that goes. But if you've read this book, let me know what you thought in the comments below. As always, my Patreon and Discord information will be in the description below. Keep reading, and I love y'all to the moon and back. Bye.